just jump to the 8th of February when the UKColumn interviewed an NHS whistleblower, extremely experienced person, and in the information that they were putting across, they were talking about what was happening inside care homes and deaths and illness following the vaccination of elderly people. Prior to that, we'd also had another NHS whistleblower, very experienced person, warning that there had been a problem that after vaccines had gone into the oldest age group in care homes, there had been a massive increase in the death rate, and they said it had gone up 81% in that age group. So we were reporting the warnings from people inside the NHS and the care system. However, our report has been picked up by the organisation Full Fact. Now I'm going to say a big thank you to our viewer that spotted this. Mike, you've got some analysis on what Full Fact had to say.
Well, this was their article. COVID vaccine hasn't caused increase in care home deaths. So that's what they claim. COVID vaccine hasn't caused increase in care home deaths. And underneath there's a box which says on the left, deaths in care homes are up 81% since the start of the COVID-19 vaccination rollout. So that's the claim that they're disputing. And on the right, their verdict is deaths in care homes are up considerably, although we haven't been able to replicate the 81% calculation. These are not deaths due to the vaccine. That's a statement. These are not deaths due to the vaccine. These are largely due to COVID-19 itself. Okay, so they link to a post on Facebook which looks like this. It said, "Shame on you, British press. Deaths in care homes have risen by 81% since they received the vax, and no one except UKColumn is covering it or investigating it. Shame on you." Okay, that's what they are commenting on. So let's have a look at what they say. So they ask, what has happened in care homes? And they say the vaccine rollout started on the 8th of December with care home residents and staff being prioritised. Oh, really? This is a very disingenuous statement, because although the vaccine rollout began on the 8th of December, it didn't begin on the 8th of December in care homes. Care homes residents and staff were claimed to be prioritised by the government, but they in fact weren't. So here is a Telegraph headline as an example. First care home residents in England to get COVID-19 vaccines in early Christmas present. And the date on this was the 23rd of December. Now this is quite important because everything that Full Fact claims in the rest of this article is based on a start date of the 8th of December. So what else do they say then? In the week to 8th December, 2,171 deaths in care homes in England were notified to the Care Quality Commission. This rose as high as 3,746 in the week to the 23rd of January, a 71% increase. So they couldn't validate the 81% number. They claim a 71% number. And the reason they couldn't validate the 81% number, of course, is because they chose the wrong start date. And if we look at the graphs, which you've shown on this program over the last few weeks, we saw that there was a flattening out and even a reduction in deaths during that period until the effects of the vaccines started to kick in, or at least that seems to be the case. But anyway, let's see what else they said here. After the vaccine rollout, the number of deaths registered then fell in the last 2 weeks of the year. And remember, their date is the vaccine rollout beginning on the 8th, not the 23rd, as actually was the case for care homes. So they were right in saying that the number of deaths registered then fell in the last 2 weeks of the year. And that, but in brackets, they say perhaps reflecting delays in registrations during the Christmas period rather than an actual fall in deaths occurring. That's correct, mostly, before shooting up in the first week of 2021. They then go on to say, but the exact figure is sort of beside the point. Deaths among care home residents did not increase because of the vaccination program, but because COVID itself spread widely in December and killed far more people. Really? Is that what was going on? Because that's a very strange statement to make in light of the government's own statistics showing the number of COVID cases. Because if we take from the 23rd of December, when the vaccine rollout began in care homes, with the exception of a few days, we've seen a massive fall in the number of cases as defined by the government since that time. but we have over that same period of time a massive rise in the number of deaths. So if the cases are falling and the deaths are rising, then how can full fact be claiming that this rising death rate is as a result of COVID spreading through the population because there are no cases? This is very interesting. What else did they have to say? They said the MHRA notes that you would expect to see deaths anyway after a vaccination, given the most vulnerable are being vaccinated as a priority, but that on investigation, it did not appear vaccination played a role in any of the deaths reported as suspicious. Really, what actual evidence is there for making that statement other than they're quoting the MHRA, who have a vested interest in denying that any of the deaths in care homes were as a result of the COVID vaccine?
And our whistleblower, highly qualified NHS whistleblower, was particularly warning that the vaccine was suppressing immune systems, which meant that it was in fact deadly for elderly people, extremely vulnerable, many of them infirm. So they're given the vaccine, the immune system is depressed, and therefore they are at risk of death, whether that was directly from the vaccine, which was not what we were saying, or it was putting them at risk of infection from COVID, amongst other things. But of course, Full Fact never did any proper investigation.
No, they go on to say another indication that the vaccine isn't responsible for the increased number of care home deaths is that deaths also rose in other groups, which were much less likely to be vaccinated at the time. But we already showed that the vaccination program began 3 weeks before the care home vaccination program began. So of course, vaccines were being spread within the community outside of the care home settings, and we would expect to see deaths rising in other groups as a result if it is the vaccine that's causing the deaths. But if we actually look at the graph that they put up, here it is. And you can see some correlation there, but actually if you put the line on the graph for when the where the correlation ends, you find that in care home settings, the number of deaths continued to rise over the following weeks, whereas in non-care home settings, the deaths flattened out and began to fall in the following weeks. So there isn't quite the correlation that Full Fact claims. So I'm sorry, Full Fact, but we are going to look at your article again and put the fake news label on it, because you haven't done your work and you haven't done the research properly, and you haven't actually been objective about how you've looked at the information.
And there's something which I find, I'm going to use the word offensive. If the true figure is 71%, which Full Fact is trying to say, we are talking about deaths of elderly people here. We should have Full Fact saying there needs to be a full and proper investigation into why these elderly people. But no, it's just get out the spin to support the government's vaccine program through these very vulnerable people. So I find that extremely unpleasant, the way the deaths are just nothing. They're just statistics.
Yeah, because it doesn't really matter whether it's 71% or 81%.
It doesn't matter. Whereas the UKColumn took the trouble to say what a qualified NHS whistleblower was saying, and we've now got more whistleblowers coming forward. But let's have a look at what Full Fact says about their own impartiality. So a big page telling us how impartial they are. And what should we look for? Well, because their impartiality has been carefully constructed based on advice from our board and examples ranging from Amnesty International to the BBC. And the moment I see the BBC on there, this is not credible. You're laughing, Mike, off camera, but the reason we're laughing is I don't think anybody in the UK believes that the BBC is an independent and unbiased organisation. So I'm not surprised Full Fact is promoting them. But of course, this is where we really start to see what we're dealing with, because this is funders of Full Fact. And what do we find at the top? Facebook. £563,775 in one tranche and 232 $2,400 in another tranche for working for Facebook. So remarkable, the story they got was on Facebook, Mike, because they would have been paid for it.
Yeah, presumably they only get paid if they find articles to criticise, whether what the criticism is correct or not.
And if we go on down the list, we see the Nuffield Foundation and Esme Fairbairn. These are all think tanks which are largely creating political policy or promoting it of their own right. But the money goes on all the way down, and you can have a look at that. And then I was fascinated by this. Since January 2019, Full Fact has checked images, videos, and articles on Facebook as part of the social network's third-party fact-checking initiative. This work is funded by Facebook. The total fees Full Fact has earned from Facebook for work on the third-party fact-checking program during 2019 is $294,400, presumably US dollars. The amount of money that Full Fact is entitled to depends on the amount of fact-checking done under the program. David, you work professionally, people being paid, which to me it's a gravy train. You find stuff, you report it, you get given more money. How can you possibly be unbiased?
Yeah, and the question is, can Full Fact point to cases where they have actually been backing up on viewpoints which are controversial, viewpoints that would be frowned upon by the political control that has the centre of Facebook and Twitter and organisations like this? Are they actually pushing back against their paymaster? I suspect not very often.
Not often, no. Well, we did call Full Fact this morning just to see what they had to say about the article, and the fact that, of course, Full Fact didn't mention the UKColumn, didn't mention any of the data that the UKColumn had pushed out, didn't mention the whistleblower. All of that fact was ignored in order to get the appropriate spin on the article. We even pointed out that journals such as the British Medical Journal here was now starting to really ask serious questions. BMJ lashes out at state corruption and suppression of science in UK, but remarkably the Full Fact media person hadn't read that article, didn't know about it, asked me if I could send them a link, but I suggested I thought they had enough capability to search the internet for it themselves. So just remarkable that where has truth gone, where has factual reporting gone? Certainly not from Full Fact in our opinion.
But just to show that this, I mean, we've shown these types of articles from around the world already, but here's another one from DW, Coronavirus Digest, German nursing home sees outbreak after vaccines. This is happening in other countries, not just in the UK, and also not just in the UK. Whistleblowers seem to be coming out. So there's 2020 news, whistleblower from Berlin nursing home, the terrible dying after vaccination. I think that's a translation inaccuracy, but nonetheless, this is something which is not just happening in the UK. It seems to be happening everywhere that the Pfizer vaccine goes.
Yeah.